All right, well, let's get started. First of all, welcome everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar by District 297. I am your host today, Daniela Piazzi. I am a District 297 connector and a fellow job hunter at the moment. This organization aims to interact and collaborate with Aruban citizens around the world with the ultimate goal of connecting the Aruban diaspora with professional opportunities in Aruba. Through these knowledge sharing events, we hope to spark thought provoking conversation and keep the voices of Arubans central in local affairs. So, today we will be discussing the topic of job hunting in Aruba. We will start with our speaker, Tristan Every, who will tell us a little bit about his personal experience in the job market and what he has learned hosting a job fair in the Netherlands for Arubans. Next, we'll have an opportunity to ask our first speaker questions, and then we will continue with our second speaker, Charlene Keynes, who will teach us some practical skills for job seekers and help you get into the right mindset to land your perfect position. We'll also have an opportunity to ask Charlene some follow-up questions after her presentation. So get those questions ready. Don't be afraid to ask. And what we will do is you can either raise your hand virtually through Zoom, or you can put your questions in the chat section and we will ask them to Charlene. So with that, let's get started. I would first like to introduce you to our first speaker, Tristan Every. Tristan is the co-founder of Create, the leading business development and strategy for this internet-first creative agency. Previous to taking on this venture, Tristan founded multiple businesses to drive social and economic innovation in Aruba. Tristan, the floor is yours.
Hi, Daniela. Thank you for that introduction, and thanks to District 297 for hosting the webinar. I think a very important topic, job hunting, especially in these times of the pandemic, which makes it sometimes even harder to find that job and get your career started. As Daniela mentioned, my name is Tristan Every. I am the co-founder and I lead the business development and strategy at Create. I'm also the co-founder of ATEC Conference, which is an annual tech and innovation conference we host here in Aruba, trying to get the knowledge of tech startups and international speakers on the island so we can create an ecosystem that involves tech and innovation. Also, one of the co-founders of Workspace, which is Aruba's first co-working space where we offer different options for freelancers, creatives, entrepreneurs, anyone basically looking for somewhere to work from. We can offer them a desk or a private office and meeting rooms. And of course, the reason why I got invited to give a talk on job hunting is Fred, where everything started. So Fred is a recruitment event, a job fair, which we organize annually in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam. And we started the first edition back in 2012. But Fred actually began way before we did the first or hosted the first job fair. It started back in 2006 when in our college years, the co-founder Quincy and we decided to venture out and start a platform to help job seekers in the Netherlands looking for a job in the Dutch Caribbean, including Aruba. Which we quickly noticed that organizing recruitment events had its value in helping people connect, organizations getting in touch with job seekers, as many of you maybe are in this webinar. So making that connection between both employers looking for new recruits and job seekers. So Fred had its main goal, and it still is its main goal, to connect these job seekers. And we try to do this by creating a meeting place physically in the Netherlands in Rotterdam, and we host it each year in WTC. The additional focus for Fred is, of course, to help fight the brain drain. We have this issue for many years now in the Dutch Caribbean islands, including Aruba, where we have students leaving the island to start their college years abroad, either in the Netherlands or in the United States or other parts in the Caribbean region. And often we see that these students, they finish and they don't return to the island. So fighting the brain drain is something we look into when organizing such events as FRED. Basically, FRED is a 4-day event. We have the main job fair. We have a company dinner where companies, they interact with a number of job seekers. We also host a number of workshops, speakers, panels, presentations, and interviews. So basically in 4 days, you get to meet your potential next employer, and you might get even offered a job on the spot. So we think this is a very effective way of recruiting, since you're being introduced to your potential employer physically. So one of the success, what we think of a success for FRED is basically if someone gets a match if there's a match between an employer and the job seeker. And there are a number of factors that play a role in the success of FRED, aside of the matchmaking. Some years we have better turnout than others. And these depend on a number of factors, such as the job market in the Netherlands or maybe in the United States. If the job market is currently doing well, we know it's going to be hard for employers in the Caribbean to find, or the Dutch Caribbean, to find someone or a new recruit. The weather also plays a role, funny enough, or maybe not funny enough. We know how the weather is in Holland. I used to study and live there, so we know some days might be worse than others, and with regards to the weather. And also the number of participating companies plays an important role in giving an indication if it's going to be a successful FRED. The more companies participate, the more people come out, the higher the turnout, and the higher the success rate for a match. So one of the greatest things about FRED personally is I get to see people physically meeting their potential new employer. They get a moment to look into the eyes of the potential employer. They get to see the smile. They get a sense of the feeling of, hey, this is something that's going well. My interview is going well, or hey, I'm connecting with my future colleague, and it's a good way to feel out the culture at the employer, at the organization that you might end up working for. Unfortunately, last year we had to skip an edition of FRED, but we're looking forward that things change and improve very soon, that we can host this event once again. We see that the handshake at the end of a conversation or an interview is the determining factor in convincing anyone to get hired and come back to Aruba. So one of the things I like to highlight is how we see the development of the recruiting going on throughout the job fair. So we label it the recruiter versus the job hunters. And actually, there's a negative connotation when you think of searching for a job hunting. It might seem scary, but you shouldn't think of it that way. It's not a battle between two warriors and saying who's going to win. It's actually a simple quest of two parties looking for a match. So it might be intimidating at first, but I can guarantee you the anxiety, it lives at both ends. As a job seeker, you see the anxiety, but also at the employers, the recruiter, it might be intimidating for them as well, having to be able to convince a potential new employee that their company is the best company to work for, that their culture is the right fit for you, that they have the best benefits or package or financial compensation. So what I want to illustrate here is that even though it might seem intimidating, think of it in a perspective from the recruiter, that they might have some anxiety as well. And this might even ease you into getting into an interview or looking for a job. One thing that's very important is to understand the landscape, especially for the organization or company you might be going to work for. So what we see is that what is important for a job seeker is to find out or do some research on the potential employer, your future employer. What is the culture like? Might it be a right fit, or from the get-go you might get a feeling this won't be it? What is the company type? Which industry are you looking to work in? What is the company size? The company size might give you a good indication if you can expect a very fast response on your application, or is it a very small company that some people might have different tasks, where you can expect people responding a bit more slower. And I think a lot of people applying from the Netherlands at potential employers in Aruba might have experienced that slowness, that tardiness in the recruiting area, where they say, hey, I've recruited or I applied 2 or 3 weeks ago and I still haven't heard from the employer. So this is company size has a lot to do with that. So you can manage expectations once you have an indication of how big is the company, what type of company it is, and what the culture is like. Some of the things I think will help potential job seekers in the future. I like to think of it that recruiting or job hunting starts from day one, from the moment you step into college. What I mean by that is it's not only about what you study, but it's also about what you are doing aside from studying. Are you into sports? Did you join a sports association? Are you doing a team sport like playing soccer? Are you into dance? Did you join a dance club? Are you doing other extracurricular activities like joining a student association? Are you joining a committee? Are you joining a board? Do you have a side hustle going on for that extra cash that maybe at the end of the month you might need? Do you have a part-time job? Are you volunteering? Do you do volunteer work? All these everything that you do aside from studying are stuff that you can put on your resume, and these will give a good indication to a potential employer of what are you capable of and how active of a person you are. All these activities, they help hone your skills. It enhances your knowledge, and maybe more importantly, it helps you build a network. And it's a network that might help you in the end to find your next job. I see questions popping in. Should I jump into those right away?
No worries, Tristan. We'll have a moment to get into questions later.
Okay. No, I think these are some of the tips that I can give right now. Talking about my personal experiences, I don't like to think of my case of finding or searching for a job as the usual case. I think some people might have gone through the same process, but most people haven't. So I was quite active as a student, and right away before I even finished my studies, I was offered 3 different jobs at the same time. So I might have been one of the lucky ones to get a job offer right away prior to finishing my college years. But I think most of what helped was how active I was as a student. So I was part of a student association, and it's actually where we started with the whole recruitment, organizing recruitment events back in 2006. We did a number of job fairs. We did a number of workshops throughout the years. If I look back at Fred, before we started with Fred, recruitment events such as the bigger job fairs in Holland, especially geared towards job seekers looking to work in the Dutch Caribbean, they were being organized every 2 years. But we thought with Fred, hey, recruitment is something that happens throughout the year, and we should have a moment each year where employers, they get to meet the job seekers, students looking for internships, students who are finalizing their studies or in the last year of college, but also the young professionals that just graduated and are looking for an opportunity. So that's one of the things we did right from the start and say, you know what, let's do this each year, because it's very important to us that the connection is being made not only once every 2 years, but at least once a year. And whenever possible, we would like to go back and maybe even do it twice a year if the time permits, with all that's happening around the world right now. I think, yeah.
Much, Tristan. I guess we'll get into those questions. First of all, just really quick before we move into questions, I would like to talk to you a little bit about Fred, because you do have that experience of bringing Aruban companies to the Netherlands. For students who are in the Netherlands, because that is your area of expertise, what do you see as the differences between job hunting there and for students who want to come back, job hunting here? And specifically, I know you mentioned that time frames can be different depending on company size. What do you mean by that?
So the biggest difference that you have right now is that being physically in the Netherlands and applying for a job in the Netherlands, you get to meet the person at the other side of the table. So that's one of the challenges we have right now. If you're applying for a job in Aruba, that you're either going to be doing it through the website, sending an email, or getting a reply by email and having a virtual interview. Even though you can see the person in front of you, you don't get to you don't have the real sense of that, that personal touch. So that handshaking, that smile, that looking into each other's eyes, those are elements that plays such an important role in not only making an impression to the employer, but also getting a good feel from your potential employer, if it's going to be a right fit, that confidence, hey, this is the right place for you. So that is one important element that's missing. And that's what we try to do through Fred. That's why we try to bring those companies to Holland to physically meet a job seeker or a potential new employee. So what I meant with time frame or company size, when we think of recruiting, especially in the Netherlands, if we're applying for a job, the recruitment process is much more, let's say, state of the art, especially if we're thinking on the bigger corporations, the multinationals. They have a number of departments, and within an HR department, you have a number of employees doing different tasks within the HR scope. If we look at the company sizes in Aruba, we're much smaller than a multinational. So someone who's in the HR department might be doing 5, 6, 7 different tasks under one title. So that same person that's doing maybe recruiting is doing the payroll, is doing policy, and might even be doing marketing. So the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes we have to step outside our own shoes and get into the recruiter side and see what is the scope, what is the landscape they're working in, and that can manage our own expectations. And okay, if it's a small company, I can understand that the response is not going to be as speedy as I would like.
That's a very good point. We're going to be moving into questions right now. So if you have a question, please put in the chat or digitally raise your hand in Zoom. We're going to get started with Jeremy Granadillo. We're going to be unmuting you now, and please let us know what questions you have for Tristan today.
Hi, sorry, I think I pressed the button by accident. Sorry.
No problem. Do you have any questions? Do you have any curiosities after his chat?
No, not right now. I'm more beyond being a student. I'm already working here for a few years, and I'm gonna move very soon. So that's why I joined this. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep hearing, and if I have questions, I'll ask.
Well, really quick, are there anything that you learned in your personal job hunt in Aruba that you would like to share with the diaspora of Aruba?
No, it's fine. Well, right now, I would say no. I haven't really looked. I've looked a bit. I have some contacts. I think I probably have about 4 leads I can start chasing when I go to Aruba. But since I'm not there yet, I didn't start.
All right, no problem. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I know Charlene is going to go into more details about tips. But one tip I can give anyone who's looking to find a job in Aruba, if you have a chance to be in Aruba, do that. Again, that personal connection, that physical connection plays such an important role. So if you're on vacation on Aruba, um, reserve a couple of days to just drop in at a potential employer and hand in your CV or your resume and ask for an interview while you're on Aruba on vacation. It always helps.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have a question from Ronali van der Pies. She's asking, what is the average success rate of matches from Fred?
So it's very hard to give a percentage on the success rate. Again, there's a lot of factors that play a role. As I mentioned, the weather, will it help with the turnout, yes or no? How is the job market in the Netherlands or anywhere? If it's a good job, if the job market is doing well, we can guarantee that employers or companies coming to Fred, the success rate will be lower. But the most important thing that happens through Fred is that connection that you're making and the impression that you're leaving behind. It's not only to get a job right away, but it can also help you 2, 3, 4 years away or along. I'm going to use the hospital as an example. So they participated at Fred for a couple of times, and what they've told me is the chances that they find someone right away might be small, but they know that in 3, 4, 5 years that they can get in touch with that same person and they can see those person coming back to Aruba. And they have a couple of cases just like that.
And going back to Fred and companies in Aruba, just moving off of that, what is the feedback that you're hearing from companies using a job fair such as Fred versus regular means like just putting their posting on a website? How are they perceiving that? How is that working out for them?
Some of them, they say, you know what, I want to be here every year. Again, coming back to my point of that physical connection, making that personal touch that you add to recruiting. Some companies, they say, if I wasn't there physically, I would have never convinced that person to come back. So that's, again, that's a determining factor, that connection that you make physically. Because I can tell you, hey, I want you to be here in Aruba, please come back. But once I'm in front of you, that feeling you get when I tell you that, it works different, and it really helps.
It's just a little difficult right now in the world that we are in. I think all of us as job hunters have to adapt to finding ways to make that connection digitally, if it is through a Zoom call or through a check-in. But you also talked about in your presentation about being very active as a student, not only in your education, but also outside of school, like being active in sports and in clubs. So because these areas aren't directly job related, how would you translate them to an employer? Like, for example, if you are on the soccer team, how are you able to convince the employer that you being on the soccer team makes you an even more valuable candidate to them?
So recruiters, they would start with looking at your resume, right? So any extracurricular activity that you add gives them a sense or a hint of how active as a person you are, but it also gives them an indication of what are the skills you have. So if you're someone who's in a team, in a soccer team or a football team, I should say, for everyone in the Netherlands, we don't say soccer. It gives them a sense, okay, this person, he plays for a team, he's a team player. Oh, he's a captain in the football team, so maybe he has a leadership role or he has leadership skills. So those are they pick up these items in your resume, and they can get a sense of the skills you might have in house.
I just want to go off that a little bit more from my personal experience in the job hunting world and working with career coaches. I've learned that sometimes you can't be so subtle about it. So let's say you're the captain of the soccer team, tell them why being captain of the soccer team makes you a good leader, makes you a good team player. Like, write that down there so that they can see it. So it's a no-brainer. You want to present yourself to the employer as the no-brain candidate, like, of course we're going to take them because they have these qualities, and not like maybe they have them because of the years they spent on a certain team or in a certain club. So
Yeah.
that is just my own 2 cents. But
No, right.
thank you, Tristan.
Very right. No,
Thank you,
thank
Tristan.
you.
Have any other last words for the job hunting community of Arubans?
No, I mean, 15 minutes or 20 minutes is quite short. So anybody who's looking to get more information, feel free to get in touch with me. You can find my info on LinkedIn or on Facebook. You can visit the website www.cr38te.com, and you can find more information to get in touch.
Yeah, just go ahead and throw that in the chat. I mean, I know Tristan is a creative here on the island. He's always trying to push people to get in these innovative fields. So I'm sure that he'd be open to a conversation if you reach out to him. Not speaking for you, but I can imagine that you would be happy to help.
More than happy.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to our speakers, and thank you to the participants for engaging in conversation. Let's move on to our next speaker, Charlene Keynes, which will be helping us with more practical skills, telling you about the things that you need to do to land that job. Currently, Charlene is the managing director and owner of Keynes Interim Management Consultancy. Her company focuses mainly on human resource management in a variety of fields, organizational development, and management coaching. Charlene, take it away. Charlene, are you able to unmute yourself and show your camera? There you go. I hear you perfectly.
Thank you. Buon tardi. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charlene Keynes, and as Daniela introduced me, I am the owner and managing director of Keynes Interim Management. And I'm very happy and pleased to have collaborated with District 297 in this wonderful initiative to help bring some diaspora students and others that are young professionals back to the island and back into the labor market. So a little bit about what I do in my background. As Daniela mentioned, I am specialized in human resources. I've been in human resources for over 16 years now in different industries, both in Aruba, Curacao, Bonaire, Suriname, Guyana, St. Lucia, and Barbados. So I have quite some extensive experience in different markets, in different areas, but primarily my strengths are in, career development, performance management, also some recruitment, especially since I am a business owner and some of my clients sometimes request for assistance with recruitment, interviewing, screening and selection of candidates. So with that said, my part this afternoon is going to talk a little bit more about the basics in terms of when we do get candidates that apply for work. What do we focus on from a human resources perspective? And that is basically the resume and the motivation letter in some cases when we do receive them. But most of the time we just get the resume, there's the CV. And that is basically where it all begins. So for us, it's really important that, the basic resume or your motivation letter has the right information, but also includes the right information for the one that is going to be reading it. So in other words, have your contact information on there. So making sure that we know where to reach you. If you have a phone number, email address, or even a LinkedIn page is also important for us to be able to connect with you. Also, what lately we've been seeing is summaries, resume profiles. So this basically highlights what you believe is important for the person seeing your resume, to find that these are your highlighted areas of your strengths, which I believe is also very, very important, because nowadays when you look at resumes and you can see the profile, you can immediately link or match this person to a position and to see if in fact they're the right fit for the position that they applied for, or that there is something within the organization that is different that they can match the candidate with. Also, what is very important when you create your resume or when you're typing up your resume and motivation letter, please double, triple check spell checks, because I still do get a lot of oftentimes that resumes have errors, typos, or they have translation errors, and that immediately already gives off a bad taste that you want to send off the right signal and, you know, have this professional document sent to a company or to a recruiter, but then there's errors or typos on it. So to always double, triple check your documents before sending those in or handing those out. And last but not least, what's also important to highlight in both your resume or in a motivation letter is to make sure you talk a little bit about your skills and your achievements. And if you have any additional abilities, that you can highlight those as well, because that also, as my colleague Tristan mentioned, that also gives a more personal touch for them to understand in which way you can be of an asset to the organization. So a resume and a motivation letter, the basics information that recruiters or companies are going to be receiving of you is going to be very important for that to be well written, have the right information, provide the right and correct information included, and to list as much as possible in which way the organization or the recruiter can gather more information about you. So once that is set up, it goes into the next phase where you start applying for jobs. So applying for jobs can be through email, or you can hand deliver the resume or your motivation letter to companies that have either vacancies or that you just want to see if they have open vacancies that you can just apply to those organizations. Right now here in Aruba, as Tristan mentioned, it could take a bit more time depending on the company size, or if they even have a human resources department, because sometimes they don't. So it's either an office manager or even an accounting person, a financial person that manages administrative activities, including recruitment for the owners or for the managing director. So oftentimes they don't have the decision-making capacity to reply and say that it's a yes or a no, or what's the status, because they don't take those decisions. So keep in mind that sometimes when you do apply for an organization, for a position, that you have the right contact information for those persons that can actually take a decision on whether or not your application can be accepted, if you can get an interview even scheduled. So make sure you send your application or you hand in your application to the right source. Also, another part which I believe is extremely important is establishing your network, contacts. Prior to coming to the island, start establishing your contacts. Tristan mentioned something also very important. For us in Aruba, it's better for you to physically be here in order for you to have that personal invested interaction with someone in the event that they are interested in speaking to you, that you can go ahead and meet them. Obviously, right now, due to COVID, we've had situations where companies have to be a bit more innovative. So oftentimes, if I just look at my own circumstances, I try to not have interviews as much as I used to in person, or when I do have those interviews, it's in open spaces where there's a lot of room between myself and the candidate. But oftentimes now we try to just limit contact as much as possible just because of the circumstances. So we use technology instead. Zoom, Teams, Google Meet. So there's different ways that we can still speak. But as Tristan said, there's nothing better than that personal touch, have that face-to-face and being able to interact and share your emotional and your physical presence with the recruiter or with the organization that you're interviewing with. So establishing a network prior to coming to the island, extremely important. Start looking for contacts through friends, through family, people that are close to you that can connect you to other persons, maybe in business organizations or are business owners themselves. So start establishing that information in a familiar surrounding where you're comfortable. And then once you have established some contacts and you have connected with the right people, you can also look at registering yourself at some recruiters, because that also gives you a better edge for you to also come prepared and be registered. And in the event there is something for you, they've already done the screening, they've already done the introduction on your behalf with the company. So you'll also get a much better opportunity over there if you just make sure that you expand yourself a bit more. So establishing contacts and network, very important, two pieces of information here, because in Aruba, for those that know how Aruba works, knowing people is extremely important. Knowing the right people gets you ahead. So get those things established before you think of coming back to Aruba. Start working on connecting. Plan B and Plan C. Just looking at my own experiences. I was born and raised in Aruba. I lived for approximately 9 to 10 years in Curacao, and I came back just recently, about 2-3 years now. I'm back in Aruba. So a big portion of my career and my planning were both spent on Aruba and in Curacao, and traveling throughout the Caribbean as well. But I always knew I needed to have a backup plan whenever I do decide to come back to Aruba. So when I did decide and I took the decision that I want to relocate back to Aruba, I actually didn't apply my own Plan B and Plan C. So I actually just popped over and decided I'm going to figure it out when I arrive. Well, not exactly the right approach. But it did work out at the ending. Again, knowing people, getting connected, making sure that I speak and present myself to the right persons, and having a lot of network opportunities where the right persons can connect me again through to other people that ultimately led to me owning my own company and setting up my consultancy. So in my case, it went a bit different. It in a different direction. I was not a job seeker per se, but I was more thinking about what can I possibly do to start my own company and start up as a young professional. And in that sense, talking to people about their experiences, what I would need to do, the proactiveness and taking decisions in order to apply what I've learned from them was what helped me to achieve where I am today as a successful business owner for the past 3 years. So having a backup plan also means having an open mind. Don't immediately believe or think that I finished my degree and I am going to get work in the area that I studied. Have an open mind when you come back to the island. Times have become a bit tougher in the labor market, but it's not impossible. So have an open mind that within your own area of expertise, maybe in a broader sense, you might be able to get work, but also apply for some courses, some things that are practical that you can do in the event that you don't achieve what you planned in the first instance. So you don't sit and think, let me wait for when that opportunity actually arises. But at least in the meanwhile, you're applying some practical new skills, new abilities that you can become someone that can be easily placed in the labor market within a different capacity. You have one step in an organization where you can further grow within the company towards your goal. So always have a plan B or a plan C in terms of where you see yourself career-wise. And that's also one of those questions when interviewing. Where do you see yourself in about 2 to 3 years or 2 to 5 years? Because ultimately, the plan and the goal is for people to come into an organization where they grow, where they learn and expand their knowledge, and also get an opportunity to further develop their skill sets that they've learned and gained throughout those years. So I want to go into now some interviewing tips. I already mentioned resume and motivation letter. That's part of it. So the first introduction to the candidate from a human resources perspective is your resume and your motivation letter, but also how you come to an interview, how you present yourself in a professional manner, in a professional attire. Also, what is very, very important is that you know who you're speaking to, because oftentimes people don't even realize that they're going to an interview or who they need to ask for. So whenever you do get the call for an interview, make sure you ask that critical question, where do I need to be? Who do I ask for? And what is their position? So then you know in what capacity you'll be speaking to that person. If you don't have all of this information, maybe because you got an invitation through an email, you can also reply to that email asking again, who will I be speaking to? So when you do go to the interview, you know who to ask for. And you can always try to look up the interviewer through Facebook or to a LinkedIn. That way you'll also see, okay, this is who I'm going to be speaking with, because you can see their face and you can also find their LinkedIn profile details. Oftentimes those are up to date with their job position at the company that you applied for. A few other things that's also important to prepare beforehand, and Tristan already mentioned this, try to learn or find information about the company, the organization. So if I'm going to apply for a company called ABC Company, I'll go on Facebook, I'll go on Google, I might even also go to LinkedIn, and I'll try to search some information about ABC Company. What do they do? What's their core business? Do they have a vision? Do they have a mission? What do they stand for? Do they do any activities for their staff? What do they actually represent as an organization within the company? I would also speak to people if they ever heard, about this organization, how they function, how they work, what type of culture it is. Because at the end of the day, when you go to interviews, the interviewer is screening and selecting you as a candidate, but this is also an opportunity for you to screen the organization as well. So it works both ways. For you to understand if this is the type of organization you would like to work with or like to work for, or vice versa, for them to see if you're also a match to their company and to their organization and for the position that you're applying for. So beforehand, research the organization first, and to make sure that you go prepared with what are a few of the interview questions that you can anticipate for the exact position that you're applying for. So a lot of times I tell my clients, because I also have individual clients that want career coaching or career guidance, and I tell them, what is the position that you're applying for? If it's a sales position within a jewelry store, for example, search in Google some interview questions specifically targeted to that industry and for that function, because then at the end of the day, you go a bit more confident. You're not so nervous. You can anticipate some of the questions and how you'd answer these as well. And it gives you a better sense if you're actually prepared or able to answer or speak to some of the questions that are related to the function. So that also gives you a sense of your preparedness or your readiness for the position that you apply for. What also is important, and I think it has to do with, throughout the years and throughout the different experiences that I've had within human resources, employers seek nowadays more and more candidates that want to contribute, that are hands-on, people that are proactive, assertive, are self-motivated and driven, and are responsible. And that needs to be something that comes through when you're interviewing, the confidence that you have within yourself, knowing that this is what you want to do and you know exactly that you're the person for the position. Oftentimes you get candidates that are very timid or afraid or nervous. And the immediate reaction to some of the things are that they prefer to learn or have somebody guide them or have somebody teach them. But a lot of companies are now more go, go, go. So they want somebody that can hop on the train and go along with them. So that's why it's important for you to go prepared, understand the position that you're applying for, understand the company that you want to ideally work for, and to get a sense of, am I ready to be able to function, achieve, and grow in this type of position and or in this type of industry and organization. So for me, the most amazing thing about living and working in Aruba now is that I get to get a feeling of putting myself back out there, living an out-of-the-box experience and getting to know how it all works all over again. And I think for you all, it's going to be that phase of getting things again, getting familiarized again with a lot of the things that happen and how it happens here compared to the States or to Europe.
Thank you so much, Charlene. That was all really, really great information, especially for first-time job searchers. I just wanted to spring off that and give one of the best tips that I've ever gotten personally, and I want to know what you think of it, is informational interviewing. So for example, if this jeweler position is available, find out who used to have that position. Find out who, someone who knows what the interview process is going to be like. They can tell you, hey, I remember they asked me these questions. This is specifically what you're going to be doing in the job, beyond the job description. And most importantly, people who see that initiative, they're going to try to help you. If they say that you're really interesting, they're going to go to the hiring manager and somebody who's interested in the position. I think that you should look more closely into this candidate when they come in.
Yes, I agree.
All right, well, let's get started with some questions. First of all, I see a question from an anonymous attendee asking if you recommend for them to do an open application in Aruba since you don't see vacancies so frequently here.
Yeah, in this case, I would recommend it, highlighting obviously what their strengths are, their abilities and their skills. But for me, I've noticed when people do open application, it does not get the same effect or the same reaction as it would for when you apply directly for a function, for a vacancy. So what I would recommend is, instead of emailing an open application, Be there personally to hand in your open application to the right person that can take a decision in that organization. Or at the very least, get recommended or get the contact information of the person in charge, either the owner or the human resources department, if they have one, and to then make sure that that person receives your details directly.
All right, thank you, Charlene. We also have two questions from Ronali van der Beest. She's asking, what do recruiters or companies prefer? Resumes and or motivation letters in English, Dutch, or Papiamento? She usually writes her emails in Papiamento and the rest in English, depending on what the company wrote in the vacancy, or in which language do you recommend?
Language also depends on the industry. So if I look at the hospitality industry, for sure, English would be the go-to language for hotels, restaurants, those type of organizations. But if it's a Dutch organization, some of the Dutch organizations, for example, like an insurance company, those I would say you can do them in Dutch. But if the vacancies come out in English, preferably keep that also the standard language that you use. Vacancies come out in Papiamento, keep that also as the standard, or Dutch or English. And also, mind you, within those vacancies, it also would ask you oftentimes what languages you would need to know in order to be able to apply for the position. So that would also help for you to understand which language for you to be using.
All right, thank you. And there's two questions that I'm going to put them together because they both seem along the same lines. One is, what are the best job search resources apart from having a network and LinkedIn? Because a lot of Aruban companies are not active on LinkedIn. And second is, what are some recruitment agencies that you can suggest in Aruba?
So what is the first question?
So what is the best resources to find jobs? Because people
Yes.
aren't active
Not
on LinkedIn.
all of them are LinkedIn, correct. Right now, Facebook seems to be the best resource for jobs. There have been numerous Facebook pages that are now opening up like mushrooms, helping people to also find positions that become vacant, because companies most of the time don't even bother to put them in the newspaper anymore. They are using their own Facebook page, their company Facebook page, and then you have these other sites that pick these up and then they would promote them. So on Facebook, Ting Trabaho, Aruba Ting Trabaho, I can send them in the chat as well. There are quite some job sites on Facebook that are supportive and are very up to date with positions that are vacant right now within different organizations. And besides that, if you want to register with recruiting agencies, well, there are quite some recruiting agencies, but again, depending on what you're seeking and what level you're looking at, we have Tempo Aruba, at DPL, which is the government agency. You can also register over there because a lot of organizations at this time are mandated to register at DPL as of November of last year, because there's a new process as of November where they have to register a document called arbeidsmarktregistratie. And this document basically highlights your manpower planning for every organization. So all companies at this time are mandated to register not only the people that are working, but also their vacancies that they have for 2021 and so on. So at DPL, they register all these vacancies that all these organizations currently have. And then they match people based on who's been registered at these companies. So that's also a very good place to start at and they basically set you up and connect you with those organizations. So they'll set up the interview with the company, give you the information, and then you go on to those interviews for the position.
All right. Thank you so much, Charlene. We really enjoyed talking to you. And if anybody has any more questions for Charlene, please leave them in the chat and we will forward them to her. And the same goes for Tristan. If you have any questions for him, please leave them in the chat. Leave us your email and we will connect you guys. So before we finish off, I wanted to talk about a new resource that we have in Aruba that District 297 has created for job hunting. It is a place where we will be posting vacancies on the island, and vacancies that are very relevant to people coming from abroad with the skills needed from young job seekers. So we're going to show you a video that explains a little bit about how this platform works.
The new District 297 website will soon be launched, and we would like to give you a preview on what to expect. The District 297 website is a platform to engage, connect, and collaborate with Arubans all over the world and connect with Aruban companies and organizations. On the homepage, you can find in-depth information about District 297, how it all started, and how the platform works. When you create an account on the District 297 platform, you will have access to job and internship listings from Aruban companies and organizations. When you go to the member page, you can engage with all other District 297 members. Each member has his or her own profile with their information and resume. We can't wait to go live so you can experience the platform for yourself.
All right, well, so this site is already live. It's available for job seekers. The District 297 platform connects job seekers with employers, but it also connects them with mentors and other members of the Aruban diaspora. You can sign up for this service at district297.com, and it's really a great resource for job seekers at the moment. If you have any additional questions, like I said before, you can write your question in the chat and leave your email address to connect with your appropriate speaker. Honestly, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for joining and for engaging with us. We really appreciate your involvement with District 297. For our future events, please stay tuned to our website and social media platforms. Thank you and see you next time.